This is the Wednesday, April 9th meeting of Open Space and Ecology, and I would like to call the meeting to order.
Did you just say April 9th?
Didn't I? July 9th. Did I say April 9th?
I thought I heard.
You're probably right.
But I thought I heard wrong.
Okay.
I must have heard wrongly also.
The chair's always right.
Yes, that's right. So April 9th.
July 9th,
Maybe it's June. I don't know.
on average.
No, June didn't happen.
June did not happen. That's why it must be June. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda before we adopt it? Because we always do. I will be disappointed if nobody has anything to say. Okay. Sure.
It's not an amendment to the agenda, but I just got back to town and discovered I had no internet service, and the trouble-free modem installation is not trouble-free, so I need to go home at 8:30.
Okay.
And I wanted to suggest an item for addition to a future agenda. I'm not sure now is the time to do that.
Let's just jump in.
Why not?
I'm good.
Okay.
You could do it under oral communications, we'll say.
Okay. So I was speaking with my neighbor today, and she says that our mutual neighbors are upset about skunks and raccoons and talking about, quote, doing something, unquote. So I thought it might be a good idea to consider what OSEC could do about educating the community about what animals are around and how to interact with them. Apparently, these people are very worried about skunks. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we have skunks in our yard, and they come around all the time, and they're not a problem. But apparently a lot of people don't realize that. So we were talking about maybe an article in the Star or something like that.
I was going to say, if you don't pet them, you don't encourage them to stay.
I think my experience has been a lot of people's problems with skunks is when they're pet owners and their dog or pet comes back and it's been sprayed, and so the kind of inconvenience of having to deal with that. I've never actually heard of anybody human being sprayed in their capacity as a homeowner. But
We can add it to a future agenda about how do we educate people about local wildlife.
Yeah, it's close.
Just going to propose a Star article or something like that.
they missed.
Yeah.
There's also some good recipes online to put that into the article.
Yeah.
Is your concern that they might try to poison them, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay.
What are the natural predators of raccoons and skunks? Maybe we could introduce those into our ecosystem. And
Coyotes.
oh,
They already
sweet.
have been introduced.
Excellent.
Yeah.
They've introduced themselves.
One thing that's important for people to know is that it is illegal to poison wildlife of any kind. And also, don't feed wild animals, period.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, people they think they're being kind, but they're not. It actually exacerbates problems with the populations and creates situations like this where they.
Absolutely.
So just people
And
should really
skunks
avoid
have
that.
no natural predators.
Not even coyotes. Cars seem
Humans.
to take out
Cars
a large
are the
number of
biggest
them.
predator, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we could talk about it, or I could try to draft something for the committee's approval at a subsequent meeting. Would you like me to just go ahead and do that, or is that
Yeah.
okay, Stuart? As far as the
Okay.
That's
do.
great, Glenn. I think it's a wonderful thing because there are our little animal neighbors too, and poisoning them isn't good for them or other things that might find the poison.
Yeah, I really don't know what is contemplated, but the complaints have reached a very loud volume, and I'm not sure why. So I don't the notion of doing something.
I just got back from the vet for picking up my cat for a $700 bill for a raccoon bite. So I am one of these people who actually does have some concerns with raccoons.
I have raccoon concerns too, but
What about the city? I mean, shutting down some of the super highways. That'd be the storm drains. Like they shut down the storm drain on Visitation, and that's great. I haven't seen a raccoon in front of my office in a couple years now.
I think he's referring to grading
Yep.
on some of the storm drains so the animals don't.
Oh, putting like the mesh over them?
No, it's not even a mesh. They put in steel that comes down, So before it was an opening about this big, and they could just climb right out, and they put 2 bars coming across with a couple down to the steel. They can't get in there anymore.
We'll ask Public Works.
Okay.
That's what
Might slow them
that's
down.
who would do it.
All right, let's move on to permeable pavement. Before we launch into that, I have something I would like to say on a more personal note. When this conversation originally began, previous meeting, I said some things which I think were completely true, and I'm very comfortable with what I said, but I thought the tone could have been more, what's the word? I don't think I got my right sentiments off. I wanted to say that I think if we approach this, we need to approach this with some very specific recommendations to with the city's cooperation, because I can very much see this issue being a non-starter for a lot of things. But I wanted to go back and say that, yes, I do think that this is an important issue, and I had asked Natalie to put it on this agenda so that we could talk to it, but I felt like I was not very encouraging last time, and I wanted to apologize for that. So with that said, are we ready for Ken? Or do we have something else we'd like to talk about first?
No, we brought Ken is the one who works with these kinds of issues, so we figure he can walk through the process, and then if there are any questions, the committee can ask him questions about what the rules are within the city, and then the committee can talk about what, if they would like to start working towards recommendations differently.
Thank you. So just to clarify, I hadn't prepared a presentation. I understood this was just more of a question and answer. So I'm happy to take your answers or your questions. I'll try to answer. Just briefly, though, a little bit of background. I gave you a handout just before the meeting started. This is from the C3, which is the regional municipal permit for stormwater. So this is governed by the state water board. And this section is actually a guidance document that the county group has put together for implementing the C3 requirements. So I thought this might be instructive in terms of how this is looked at with regards to the stormwater requirements. Now C3 essentially is it's fairly new for in the municipal permit, just a few years ago adopted, and the city has had a couple projects that have been subject to it. It's essentially, it has different thresholds for either new or replacement impervious surface. A key threshold is 10,000 square feet, and that's new or replacement, not maintenance. So if you're re-roofing a large structure or just maintaining pavement, resurfacing it, those projects would not be subject to C3. But if you're, say, completely regrading a parking lot and reconfiguring it, that would be subject if it's over that threshold. So one way that a project may essentially reduce their stormwater impacts would be through impervious surface, which this section addresses. So it might be used if possible, technically possible, to possibly come under the threshold or just otherwise address issues. So they could have still C3 requirements, but also have permeable pavers or permeable surfaces as part of their overall picture for a project. So essentially, a little deeper into C3, if it applies, it would require low impact development. It's referred to where you're providing on-site infiltration of the surface water into the ground. If you can't do that, then you would have such things as a flow-through planter, where you have much like you see right outside City Hall. That predated the C3 requirements, but you have surface water running to it, soaking into the soil, and if it reaches a certain height, a certain storm event would actually reach that grate that's a little bit higher than the soil level, and that's the overflow, essentially a bypass at that point. But the biggest contaminants are really that early flush off of pavement where you're getting the oils and such, and so you get that benefit of the first treatment going through the soil and getting treated that way. So that's essentially what the C3 requirements address. And impermeable pavers or pavement, I shouldn't use pavers, there's other means like asphalt and concrete that are designed to be permeable as well, are a piece of that bigger puzzle. So with that, take your questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
So my understanding is that in some parts of the city, permeable paving use is discouraged because it will loosen hillsides and cause landslides. Could you maybe explain that?
Yeah, and this really, I think, goes more to the city engineer in terms of looking at these projects on a site-by-site kind of basis. There does seem to be a tension, essentially, between the requirements of C3 and what a city like Brisbane faces with so many homes on steep hillsides where you don't want to supersaturate the hillside with water. So there is a balance there that really gets into technical question of site-by-site design. But the C3 requirements don't, given the high threshold of 10,000 square feet, wouldn't apply to any homes that I'm aware of in Brisbane. We could potentially have a very large site, I suppose, but there's not. Most sites are on the order of 5,000 square feet, maybe up to 10,000, and you're going to have landscaping as part of that part of that site. So there are also requirements for small projects within the C3 regulations. It's not a C3 regulated project, but there's essentially recommendations for, there's best management practices for stormwater, but also recommendations for site design where they can use cisterns and run off into vegetation, those sorts of things.
So as I understand you, there's really no C3 requirement that would include possibly permeable paving that can be imposed on the average homeowner in Brisbane. Is that right?
That's correct. And permeable paving is not embedded in the C3 regulations as a requirement. It's just one option, design option, essentially.
Okay. And I suppose it's then quite infeasible to impose that kind of requirement on homeowners. Is that right?
I would say so. I think it really gets into a building code question and how we would approach that. It could go to, if you look at the state building code, there's as we've done, and we need to gather back again on that in the other subcommittee on green building ordinance, but if a city were to adopt Tier 1 or Tier 2 in the green building, the state's Cal Green, which are essentially REACH ordinances that cities can adopt beyond the standard code, they do to some degree address permeable pavement, but it's not nearly as prescriptive as the C3 requirements.
Yeah. Part of the reason I'm interested in this, and I assume other members of the committee, is that, when you go around town, there's quite an alarming number of people that are putting concrete kind of wall to wall over their yards. which is not only a problem for stormwater, but it's also sort of a problem, I think, in terms of loss of habitat and, loss of plants for pollinators and things like that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Can you tell me why there's a 10,000 square foot threshold?
I don't have the background from the state in terms of why they settled on that as a number.
Can we change that to 5,000?
Well, this is the state's C3 requirements. It's not that's not Brisbane regulation.
But could we lower that cap in our own building ordinances? The reason I'm asking is 5,000 square feet is actually a pretty large area. That's the size of our lot. And the most likely place that we could benefit from having permeable parking pavement is in Crocker Industrial Park and along the perimeter of San Bruno Mountain and the Brisbane Industrial Park and some of those areas. Obviously, over the landfills and the baylands and with Sierra Point, we'd have to have catch basins and that type of thing, and you could only have the top layer semi-permeable, or because you don't want to be, putting water through the landfill. But in Crocker Industrial Park, I could see where there'd be a huge advantage to have permeable paving in the parking areas. But the 10,000 square foot threshold is really high for some of the projects that could be converted to having permeable paving that could contribute to, downstream water habitat, etc. And the project that comes instantly to mind is the expansion of the Shanghai Bakery, where permeable paving for their parking really should be used. Because that's at the start of the watershed for the whole Guadalupe Valley.
So Shinki is actually going to be there. They don't have a permit in hand yet, but they will be subject to C3 requirements. So they will have to address that. The pervious paving, though, is, and this is actually addressed in the handout right at the start of it that I provided to you. It refers to light vehicle loading and lightly trafficked areas, and the concern is really deformation of the surface because of the compaction level. I think you get too much compaction and essentially you're making it impervious. And so there's that balance of the compaction to allow water to flow in. But so it's really, I think, a specialty kind of solution that doesn't apply necessarily to all projects. And I think with Crocker Industrial Park, your sites are actually really quite large there, and so we have had a couple now that have been subject to it on Valley Drive, and Shinki, of course, is coming up as well. So I think those are being captured.
But if the threshold was lower, like 5,000 square feet, then even certain remodels and of industrial buildings and that type of thing, the permeable surfaces could be used for auto parking and some of the other uses, and because they'd still have to obviously have sturdy pavement for heavy traffic uses. But there is a great deal of the industrial park that could be converted. Auto parking spots could be converted to pervious pavement over time if the threshold was lower. And this was tied to any kind of remodeling and that type of thing. I think it would be a good idea because we have a water flow problem through there. It's a wet area, and you want to be able to let the water, drain through instead of collect in the way that it does in some places.
And would that be something that you guys would be looking at as part of the green building ordinance as, permeable surfaces?
Yeah.
I'd have to explore that a little bit and see if that would be the best place to address that, or if it's, yeah, that might be something to explore there at least.
It's a point system, and so people have choices about what they do. Could you, as long as you're here, could you tell us when we're going to take up the green building code again? It's been a long hiatus.
It has. So we took a break essentially because the state had its current 2000. It's actually called 2013 building code update, which became effective in. Most of it became effective in January of 2014, except the energy portion, which was a critical portion in what the subcommittee was contemplating in the REACH ordinance that was drafted up prior to that point, and so that has now become effective as of this month, and so I need to wrap my head around the details more and bring those back to you, but I anticipate later this summer, and so you should get an email from me shortly trying to, from both Kima and you, Glenn, on dates as well as the planning commissioners on that. So
Okay.
Should be coming soon.
When we get back together, we can look at the permeable paving issue. I think we did talk about it, but it's been so long, I don't remember. Do you remember?
I think we talked about it, but I don't remember anything beyond that.
Details, yeah.
It was just one of many things that kind of came up.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I have a couple questions myself. So it sounds like there aren't any currently published guidelines for when to use permeable pavement on projects, like, not above Humboldt but below Humboldt, that kind of thing.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if we have. Yeah.
For my personal curiosity, can you tell us what 3 projects have been subject to the C3 requirements here in town?
We have 275 Valley Drive, 246 Valley Drive, and now Shanky Bakery, which is, I want to say 201 South Hill.
Okay.
And Shanky has not yet got building permits, but as their plans stand right now, they're going to be subject to it.
Okay. One of the things I wanted this committee to actually consider possibly is where would infiltration be beneficial? As you said, Michelle, at the head of the Guadalupe Canyon. And where might groundwater recharge a issue anywhere in Brisbane?
It's absolutely an issue in Brisbane. There are a lot of natural springs in Brisbane. You can tell in this dry year that some of them that usually run all year round for all of my life are drying up right now. But the upper streets is where the recharging is most important because it kind of all filters down. So there are a lot of natural springs in this mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any sort of map of those? And do we know which ones are trouble for homeowners and which ones are beneficial to wildlife? Do we have any?
I don't know whether
hydraulic?
the city does or not.
Okay.
I mean, I don't feel like our hydrology's been well studied at all.
Okay. Well,
Does the city have any maps of that?
I mean, I'd have to ask Randy about the storm drain maps that they have, because I mean, we do have maps.
Storm drain maps,
right?
yeah.
Which would be the hydrology of how it's flowing off of the mountain. So I don't know if we have ones that would show
Natural springs.
Springs that happen, during.
Yeah, because there was, for instance, a natural spring that filtered down through the property that was across the street from where we live, and when they excavated several dump trucks full to build the massive house that's there now, it shifted the water flow of the spring, and for the first time ever, the lowest apartment in the building next to us that my grandmother had built back in the early 40s flooded with heavy rain because of the shift
Yeah.
in the
They
flow
can
pattern.
Definitely cause
By,
shifts.
building a retaining wall that's as high as this room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think it's well documented at all in Brisbane where the natural springs are.
So through the chair, if I might draw your attention also to the second page, the backside of this section 6.7. It has subgrade and site requirements under C3, and one of them is a depth to groundwater at least 10 feet, which I think might be prohibitive in much of Crocker Park with fairly shallow groundwater tables.
Yeah, is that mandated by the state?
Well, this is to qualify paving under the C3 rules, as essentially to use this method within C3, you're going to meet these various requirements, and so that's one of these that we would be looking at. So.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was curious of why they set that.
I'm not sure.
You'd think it would be the opposite. You'd want, if you're closer to groundwater, the more likelihood of it running off and going in through groundwater and actually being effective.
I think there's an issue with oversaturation of the ground underneath these parking areas, and so they don't want that. Why exactly 10 feet versus some other number, I don't know.
And how are they determining the depth of the groundwater? And did 275 Valley Drive and 246 Valley Drive install any pervious pavement, or
No.
did they decide the groundwater was too close?
They used a flow-through planter method, so they're capturing all of that disturbed area and treating it through a flow-through planter. So they didn't, to my knowledge, they didn't even contemplate permeable pavers or other permeable surfaces. So they're using other methods.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I understand your point about recharge needing to happen on the upper slopes, but I also, the reason I said not on the upper slopes is because of the potential slide issue. And I'm worried about, as much as I want to care for the mountain and our environment, I don't want to endanger anybody's home either.
No, it's interesting because...
Yeah, because exactly where you would want it is exactly where it's going to cause the most trouble.
Potentially, and yet at the same time, it alleviates trouble as well. It depends how it's done.
Yeah. So if what we're really concerned, I just want to feel this out. If we're really concerned about this wall-to-wall paving that's happening, are there other ways possibly to approach it rather than permeable paving that would be easier to...
One method that's actually already within the zoning ordinance for various districts are minimum landscape areas for sites. So Crocker Park has 15% as a minimum improved landscaping. If you're building a new home on a 50-foot wide lot, you have also 15% within the front setback area. You also have maximum lot coverage of 40%, for instance, within the R1 district. And given the topography, driveways tend to be fairly short. So the question becomes, I think, well, what's happening in the backyards? Are they covering them with decks or other patio surfaces that might come into play? So I guess that's one thing that comes to mind is landscape areas, essentially, which we would consider softscape, not pavement.
And that only covers you said the front setback, the 40%?
The
In
the
R1?
40% is the maximum lot coverage within the R1 district. The landscaping minimum requirement refers to the front setback area.
So I need some clarity on that. 40% lot coverage in R1. What is considered lot coverage?
Building?
No,
This-
him answer.
This is the building footprint, essentially.
Yeah.
The building footprint. So you can still concrete over your yard.
Yes.
Just wanted clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with landscaping. You can buy your lot and completely cover it with concrete except for 15% of the setback?
If you are on a downslope lot, there's also a requirement for landscape screening of the rear of the property, so that also would address landscaping. So I suppose theoretically, yes, you could have quite a bit of pavement on a.
So we're on a
single-family
5,000
home.
square foot lot and essentially, and we have no, front yard because we're built pretty much close to the property line for the city because our house is so old. So basically, I could concrete over my entire yard. Yes or no? Legally, yes. Correct?
You have
We're a downhill lot,
and you're how big?
5,000 square feet.
So no, you couldn't legally do your whole lot. You
Because
still have
why?
a small portion in the front that you would have to maintain in landscaping.
There is no portion in the front. The city already
So,
paved it over.
I think through the chair, I think we're getting a little
I'm just
off
curious,
on,
'cause-
on a tangent.
Well, that's why I wanted
So,
clarity on what the rules really say.
So
I think this is germane to the discussion because I think our concerns are about habitat conservation, and I think the committee feels that concreting over the entirety of one's yard is not conducive to habitat conservation. So I would allow Michelle's question.
Yeah, so basically.
So this is a matter that I would say it's within the zoning ordinance, which is the purview of the Planning Commission. If there's a concern with the ordinance as it stands, then I think the issue should be brought to City Council as a recommendation for the Planning Commission to examine it.
There you go. That's what we should
Fair enough.
probably do
Thank
then.
you.
That's what we need to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry to have to press on that, Ken, but it
fine.
was a good example of what's happening in some places.
Yeah. I'm just going to tangent. Once a yard is concreted, it's a lot of work to unconcrete it, and
Oh,
other
no.
people come along and want to have edible gardens or natural gardens. It can be a real burden. So, okay, great. Does anybody have any more questions on this matter?
I do.
Hi, Kima.
Hi, Ken.
Okay.
I was curious. I had been meaning to ask about Sierra Point and the Baylands earlier before Michelle mentioned it, but then part of the conversation steered to water tables and whatever. And I'm just curious, for those areas, either where there's development pending or where there might be development in the future, how much of those areas would fall under, the ordinances that we're discussing?
So any new development that would reach that 10,000 square foot threshold would fall under the C3 requirements for stormwater treatment, and if it's actually a new development versus redevelopment of an existing site, that entire impervious area would have to be treated under the C3 requirements.
And if I understand correctly, based on what was talked about with Crocker Park, there's a requirement that the water table has to be at least 10 feet below the surface, or deep. Do you know whether the Baylands or Sierra Point that would be the case, or is the water table more shallow like it is in Crocker Park?
I don't have that information.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Theoretically, in the landfill, the water table,
Well, yeah.
Yeah, theoretically, it's dry.
Theoretically, but
or it's bay.
Right.
Or it's big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the C3 ordinance isn't just about pervious pavement, it's about the catch basins and the other kind of things.
Right.
Correct.
Pervious pavement is just
One tool in the
one
toolbox.
tool within that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a feeling that catch basins and such are going to be more relevant to Brisbane in general because of our water table issues. But
And slope
it's
issues.
good to explore this issue. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Ken.
My pleasure.
I want to have can I just have 1 second to read this information that Ken gave us so that I don't let him go without any questions? Does anybody else want to read it? I don't know.
Well, I can give you an update on the Quarry Road cleanup day while you guys read it.
Yeah, that would be
I
great.
want you to have my full attention, Michelle. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. All right, is everybody good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. See you soon.
All righty, moving on. Number 4, update on Quarry Road cleanup.
So just to make sure I'm clear on where we're going with this, is this something that you're going to be asking your representatives of the Green Building Ordinance to take up as part of the Green Building Ordinance? Because that way it would get through, from there it would get its way through to the Planning Commission. I'm just trying to figure out what the next step in what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Thank you,
I'm sorry.
Stuart. No, that's too many balls.
I thought it was a zoning issue for the Planning Commission. I didn't understand from Ken that it was actually part of the ordinance. I understood it was a zoning thing that sets aside those, that makes those.
Well, it's a zoning issue that talks to, from what I was hearing, again, I'm not a zoning person. From what I'm hearing, the zoning ordinance talks to how, what the setbacks are, how much can be covered, what can be covered by impervious material, what can be covered by the building itself, and what has to be covered with landscape in order to do the screening issues. The question is how do you bring this forward to a process where the Planning Commission would hear it? And so it would either be that this commission recommends to the City Council that this be an issue that the Planning Commission takes up, or you say or potentially during the green building conversation, you say one of the issues, and I know the green building deals more with the building itself.
Yeah, we haven't
it-
talked about any requirements like what percentage of the ground is covered by impervious surfaces. I don't remember us
Right,
doing that
and
at
I
all.
understand that, but that might be a place where at least you can feel out 2 of the planning commissioners that you're with and say, here's an issue that's coming up, and we recognize it's not part of of how a building is built, but we feel that it's part of not just a green building, but of a greening of the entire lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just wondering how to move this to a way that the committee would like it to. I mean, the other way to do it is, we're looking to try and get a meeting with the council liaison at your September meeting, and maybe bring it up at that meeting with the liaisons to see if there's an appetite from the 2 liaison to, bring this forward. I mean, those are the 2 ways I think that you can move it forward with it. It just having this conversation and say, okay, and then you're going to ask me in 3 months, where are we with that?
I think we should bring it forward in both areas.
Yeah.
Because I think that the green building ordinance is it's the green building as a verb, not as a noun ordinance.
I think it's a noun. We may want it as a verb, but I think it's a noun. I mean, I haven't been part of it. That was, much more Lisa, but I'm pretty sure that it was, how do you create a green building?
But part of the ordinance deals with how you build a green building and the practices of building it, such as what was discussed
Right,
in the draft
LEED
EIR. Like,
right.
what do you do with the materials and where you get your materials and everything else? So I do think it's a verb, and as a verb, it should include the whole property and the landscaping and the area of open space that goes with it.
I do too, in a good world, but this green building ordinance process is not going like that. The building ordinance is pretty closely confined to certain things involving the building itself.
Well, then maybe we should just change that.
Well, it's a lot easier said than done.
It is. But you're a powerful woman, Glenn. I've seen you do miracles.
It's not just Glenn. Kima,
I know.
Kima's there.
Well, I haven't seen you
I'm a
do
powerful.
miracles
I'm a
yet.
powerful woman too.
Thank you.
Now, there are things that building codes cover and things that they don't. And
Right.
basically, we are already confined within what the building code covers. I think
Right, but
there
this is
should
an
be a broader
ordinance.
discussion, but it's probably not
As part of
going
that.
as part of the green building
So
code.
let's put this. So as I said, we're trying to set up the September meeting as a liaison with the two Lori and Ray.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we have the process for the energy plan on it, is because I think that's going to be part of what we talk about. So we can add this to that and say, here's an issue that the commission would at least like to take a look at and look at what other cities are doing and see if there's a better solution out there than what we have for individual houses.
I would much rather do it that way than do it in the Green Building Ordinance Subcommittee, because the way that whole conversation has gone, it's pretty much restricted to building codes and not. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Kima?
My impression is pretty much the same as yours. That if it's germane or if it's subject to the building ordinance, then it would be something that would be discussed. But otherwise, it's not really. Yeah, we'd really have to look at it and see whether it's a part of it or not.
Well, it's not part of the
I don't
building-
think it is.
It's not part of the building code. It's not part of the building ordinance. It's part of, what the question, of course, comes to, and it's a question I think this committee struggles with a lot when you talk about sustainability and how does buildings relate to sustainability. And part of how buildings relate to sustainability is what goes on in the surrounding area of a building.
Right.
So, and I can understand where you would say that the green building ordinance, as it's traditionally looked at, does not cover, because it's a building as a noun ordinance.
Right.
And even if it's the material of how you build the building, it's still related to the noun of the four walls. So yeah, I think maybe then the best way to do it is to add it to our work plan, have the council, say that this is one of the areas that we're looking to bring forward to the city council within the next 3 to 6 months, and maybe have, based on that, if the council says, yeah, we want to hear about it, maybe have a quick subcommittee that looks at other cities' ordinances as it relates to zoning and their lot coverage issues like we talked about. And maybe pick a city that we think has a better lot coverage ordinance for zoning, and then bring that forward and say, or model something on that and say, here's what we think we should do. But try and do it relatively quickly and bring it forward.
Now, I really don't really want to spring this on the members of the Planning Commission at a green building ordinance meeting. I think it would crash and burn.
Let's do it the other way then.
Because, I think the green building code is part of the green building ordinance, I don't think they're synonymous.
Let's pick this up in September when hopefully Ken has had a chance to go over the new materials and talk to Kima and Glenn. And if that has not borne fruit, then we will be ready to pounce on our city council representatives in September. Does that sound good? And everybody be sure to bring to the table anything that they feel is important by then.
Okay.
Is that satisfactory in the short term?
Yeah. I know one city to look at is San Francisco, because the Sunset is being paved over by a lot of property owners there. It's the same problem. People are just covering their entire lots with concrete. There's a lot of...
So we don't want them. We want somebody who has more green space.
Right, but they are dealing with the problem.
They're
somehow.
actually responding? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm vague on details, but I know
Let's
it's come up.
We'd probably also want to look at cities that have similar topographic characteristics. So
Hawaii.
Well, no, I'm thinking like Mill Valley or other.
Sausalito.
Yeah,
yeah.
Ones that are have bayfront as well as hills. There's a lot of them in this area. We're not unique, but
Yes, we are.
wow. Okay. I'll leave it. I'll,
There is
leave it.
no-
I'll let that comment
There is
stand.
no city. Just there is.
Argue with you.
Yeah, working now in another peninsula city, there is no city out there like Brisbane.
Right.
Yeah, we are unique.
I'm only talking topographically. There is nowhere like home, as Dorothy put
There
it.
is nowhere like home. Anyway, okay, so I'll have Natalie look up some of these in the meantime.
Yes, Glenn did mention that she has a deadline tonight, so let us please move on to number 4.
You or me, Natalie? How many people showed up for the entire event?
Oh, that's good.
More than, I mean, I think it was more than that because there was 2 groups. Our group had probably 15.
Okay. Some people started from the bottom of the slope and just kind of left a little bit earlier.
Uh-huh.
So it was a good group.
Yeah.
We cleaned up a lot.
We had 2 groups. One that started at the base of Quarry Road in near the community park and worked their way up Quarry Road. And I actually never saw some of those people. Like I never saw Peter, that whole crew. And then there
Is
was
he gone?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering. You didn't see him. He may have disappeared. Sorry. I apologize, Glenn. I'll stop it. I'll tell you that.
And then there was the group up at the where the drainage ditch is, the quote-unquote ad hoc skate park. And you were right, Glenn. There was a tremendous amount of garbage there.
How much did you guys take out? I'm just curious.
We took out as much as we could find. I mean,
truckloads or...
we filled the dumpster.
Wow.
But
I'm sorry I was not there.
there was
about that.
the part that was hard was sweeping up broken glass and picking up bottle caps and mattresses and condoms and spray paint cans and just an unbelievable amount of debris. The garbage can that we had installed has already been tagged with graffiti.
Okay, as long as people are using it.
And
Are they putting garbage in it when they tag it?
I don't know. I didn't. I mean, there's
No, they're dropping the aerosol can next door to it. That's what she
So we cleaned up glass out of the drainage ditches. We cleaned up glass. I mean, a lot of glass and a lot of crap and a lot of garbage and 6 cinder blocks and
Good grief.
had been stashed. You
In a
weren't there. You
suitcase.
didn't get them. They went in the dumpster. Sorry, we
And that
asked.
suitcase
And
that
that's-
someone found
A su-
had some kind of unidentified waste inside of it. So I
it was pretty disgusting.
Wow. That's even worse than it was when I saw it last.
I mean,
Man.
and we, pried up bottle caps and everything. So, I really feel that, and we also, while we didn't do a lot of, plant stuff, we did take out a lot of broom in that area to give more visibility from the roadway, to hopefully
Yeah, there's
discourage,
lots of room in there.
the more illicit activities, because now they're more in view. And I guess it's an area we just really need to watch carefully because, there was also some offensive graffiti that, and stuff like that that's now been sprayed over. And it's an area that needs care. It really needs care. And it's not just kids. It's adults and all kinds of people. Tremendous amount of empty alcohol containers.
Do we know if any of the skateboarders came to the cleanup?
Not that I saw.
They might not admit it. Okay, I just wondered.
No, there was no.
Okay.
Maybe there was 2 or 3 people there that would have been capable of skateboarding.
Okay.
We did have a nice showing of people from Ecology.
Oh, good.
Yeah, 4, 5
Wow.
executives from Ecology came, including the senior VP and Rich Borgello and Mark Arsenault, and they worked their what's off.
Wow.
I
Oh,
was
great.
I was impressed.
Very
So
impressive.
it was a very it was a great turnout. So as hard as it was to do all that, I'm really glad we did.
I can't wait to see it.
We had some feedback on our website, and I printed it for everyone if they wanted to read it. Basically, people gave us the feedback that maybe they would like us to do Bicentennial Walkway some other time.
Oh, yeah.
But if we chose to do that, we'll have to coordinate with the city so to make sure there's no time conflict with building and weed abatement and when they're out there. That
Yeah.
we wouldn't be out there at the same time.
And it was nice that they gave feedback, but I wish they'd come out and given some muscle too. You know what? I just also really want to say a very special thank you to some very special people, and that is the people who came to help, and sat there in the cold wind all day. Bonnie and Cy Bolagoff, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember the other woman's name.
Was Renee?
Oh no, Renee was out there picking up garbage.
No.
But these are more senior volunteers.
Okay.
And they worked hard all day signing people in, giving them water, giving out T-shirts. And it was cold and windy that morning if you were not working. And I just really want to express my personal appreciation for what they do. So, I mean...
The only thing I want to add is that I talked to Lisa Greenlee, and she said that she feels that the garbage can has made a positive impact.
Good.
Good.
So maybe we won't be having to work quite so hard next time.
Excellent.
That's great.
Okay. Any more comments on number 4? All right, let's roll right on to number 5. Who's going to give us the update on the polystyrene ban presentation, Mike?
There's my update.
There you go. Okay.
Next item.
Next topic.
So
You literally did.
is that then moving on to city council?
yeah.
Nobody showed up.
Yes. So
Oh.
we have talked with our city attorney to make sure that he understands what we're doing. We checked one more time with the Chamber of Commerce. We think that there may be only one business in town who is still using polystyrene. We will talk, we'll make a personal contact to that business. And what we would recommend is, after talking to the business, maybe putting into the ordinance, giving them a little bit of time to go through their inventory and
Yeah.
say that, 6 months, 3 months from now, 6 months from now is, at that point is when it's going to happen.
I can name 2 businesses in town.
That still have it? Because we could only think of one. Melissa's is the one we thought of.
And I still get some at the Thai but Japanese sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Last
okay.
time I was at the Thai restaurant, I got plastic.
Okay, so we'll make contact with those 2
Yeah.
personally.
What about Lucky House? I saw it there, but that was a little while ago.
Yeah, they may have some too still.
Okay, well,
What is the?
we're adding now to the groups of people that Natalie has to go talk to. But
What is 7 Mile House? I don't think I don't take food out of there when I go there.
I rarely bring it home.
Yeah. I always eat it all.
So delicious, I eat it right up.
so we'll do that, and what we're going to plan to do is get it on the August council meeting.
Alrighty. Preparation to meet with the OSEC liaisons.
Right. So one of the issues that the OSEC liaison committee has talked about, and it's high on their list, is the energy plan. And I think this is where where the idea of photovoltaic panels in the parking lots and trees in parking lots kind of falls under, because if we can have an energy plan, and this would be an aspect of that. So that's why we've included the 2 together under this. And Karen from our Public Works and Engineering Department is the one who's taking the lead in trying to put together a process for us to go through and create an energy plan.
Okay.
So that's why we have Karen here tonight to talk to you about what she's found. And then what I would recommend is probably after this is to reinstitute our energy plan subcommittee.
We did.
Which I think is okay.
We did.
Who's on it?
You, me, and
That's it,
that's it.
because you can only have 2 now.
Yep.
Why?
Because you have 5, otherwise it would be a quorum. So it can't be a subcommittee; it would be a meeting of the whole group.
Got it.
So good evening. I've been working with CCAG and Natalie, did you hand out what I wrote?
Yeah, everyone should have a letter in their packet.
Okay. And I put a little report together to kind of introduce you to what I found out and what I'm proposing as a process. I don't know if people want to.
Is it this?
If people want to take
Yeah.
a look at that before I talk about it, or
What's the name of the file?
I probably sent.
Nice to see you again, Karen.
Sorry.
Looks like
About
this.
halfway through.
Climate.
This is it. Ah, okay.
I'll just look over. Yeah, no worries.
Is there something else that went along with that? Just the one page.
Just the one page.
Let me know when everybody's ready.
Ready?
Ready?
Ready.
great. So you just read what I prepared. So to summarize, staff sees value in going forward with an energy action plan, and there's kind of a model, a framework out there that CCAG has put together, and a lot of agencies in the county have used it to adopt either a climate action plan or an energy action plan. There are other agencies that are working on developing theirs, and there are a couple that haven't started, which we are one of those. So the regionally integrated climate action planning suite starts with a bunch of measures that each agency can take and craft and refine to achieve energy sustainability. And we're interested in starting with this model, starting with this framework, and having the help of a consultant to answer the difficult questions and help guide us. What I did talk about a little bit in here is that some of the agencies did a climate action plan, and in Brisbane we're interested in an energy sustainability action plan and not dealing with the greenhouse gas emissions, number one, because we can't really affect them very much, and number two, because a lot of those are planning decisions, and the Planning Commission and the Community Development Department are going to include those in an updated general plan, so they're kind of outside the scope. But they're still, obviously the whole rest of the scope of it is available, and what we're trying to do is find out that the Open Space and Ecology Commission, I'm recommending that you support using this process to develop an energy action plan. And I know I haven't put much detail about what the process is in the report and gone into, I can certainly answer questions. I have the draft list of measures, and I thought it was maybe premature to start talking about each of the measures and how we would want to modify them or use them. So I just categorized them. There are the energy measures, which are obviously the highly important ones, the solid waste measures, water measures, and then the general green business measures. That's the all sector. So there's a framework that it's being used within the county. The agencies that have already adopted a plan are in a working group together, and because once you adopt a plan, you need to measure whether you're saving energy, and you need to quantify it and show that you are reducing emissions and improving energy use. So the working group is going through the nuts and bolts of how to apply the policies that they've adopted, and that's also a resource for staff to continue once we have a plan, because the plan is not the end, it's kind of the beginning of what happens after that. So there's good resources to start with this model, and it's not, I don't think it's a limiting factor. I've talked a bit with the consultant. It's not that when you decide you want to use this process that you're constricted. It's just a framework to start developing a plan. So kind of just starting the discussion, I guess.
Is this, are these plans kind of geared to AB 32? I mean, I would assume that they have targets that are calibrated to those of AB 32. Is that right? I mean,
that
have
was
targets?
Yeah, right. That was the kind of the starting point, and that's way back, probably 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. We brought this idea to the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm just too many places. Mm-hmm. To the Open Space and Ecology Committee, and we had a real frank conversation concerning AB 32 as it relates to Brisbane because of 101. Mm-hmm. And this is where we kind of lost momentum, because what happened was we were, as a committee, there was a real concern that the greenhouse gases and the AB 32 reductions was not really within the purview of the city itself directly, because so much of it is dependent. I think 95% of our greenhouse gases come out of 101, if I remember the number right. 90%, I mean, a real high percentage. Mm-hmm. And the committee said at that time that until the state takes action on 101, really looking at our greenhouse gases is not what we wanted to do. So then we came forward and said, let's look more at energy issues, mm-hmm. which is where the committee then did, worked with Anjana on the weatherizing issues of the house, worked with the Millers on putting together the solar panel, an alternative energy forum, and then the draft EIR came forward, and we took a vacation from other issues.
Right.
And the committee, the liaison committee at that time, at one time said, let's bring this to a higher end. Karen, was tasked with how do we go about creating an energy plan. Mm-hmm. And what she found with RICAPs is that they have enough alternatives that doesn't really deal strictly with the greenhouse gases, but ways that you can affect greenhouse gases through other methods. That might be and there's free help there, and we're not reinventing the wheel. That might be the way to do it. So what I would think is, having Karen sit down with the subcommittee, go over what the methods are that RICAPS uses, which ones make the most sense for us, and then which ones we as a subcommittee you think should be added to it, and then bring that back to the full committee for a review and say, yeah, this makes sense for what we would consider a good energy action plan is for the city. Mm-hmm. So that's what that was kind of the history and the thought process moving forward for me.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Who is the consultant, and who is paying the not to exceed $10,000?
CCAG is paying that to each agency, or to the consultant, that each agency can use them to that amount. And they're put their name
and you have the name in there.
DNVGL is the name of the consultant, and they
that stands for what?
They run the working group at the county level.
Okay.
And I'm not.
And that was an issue 3 or 4 years ago, because I think the people that was 3 or 4 years ago was the same one that UPC was using as their consultant, mm-hmm. and it's not the same group anymore.
The other thing is I noticed that then we're excluded from looking at land use issues. In this, as part of the climate thing, it says, I believe you said that we wouldn't be looking at land use issues.
So that's because the Planning Commission is going to be looking at that through the general plan update.
Right.
So if as a committee you want to look at land use issues, it would be probably better to do it through, as we're going through the general plan and making comments on that.
Will we be doing that?
Well, you can ask I think that might be a question you might want to ask of the liaison committee.
Okay, because
to say that might be an area that you also want to focus on.
Yeah, could you put that on?
Natalie, could you
Yeah.
make sure that gets on to our to-do list?
Because, land use obviously affects open space and ecology and is very important to all of us. And
Are you?
yeah, I'm done. No, I just had that question. I'm sure I have other questions, but
Just had a comment. I'm glad to see that energy action is on the agenda, and I don't mean to be a wet blanket, but one thing that concerns me a little bit about spending a lot of time on a planning process is that, we already know, I could name 5 things, and I'm sure other members of this committee could do it too. We could all name 5 measures that would reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions in Brisbane. But I'm wondering, is designing a plan going to teach us how to implement these things? For instance, when we had, Stuart was talking about the earlier incarnation of the Energy Action Subcommittee. And, we've got a big industrial park that's got lots of acreage, and there could be solar panels on those roofs generating electricity. It's perfect. It's sunny. Buildings are south-facing. But we've got a lot of absentee landlords. And unless we can figure out how to get in touch with those absentee landlords and require them or get them to volunteer to put up those solar panels, nothing will happen. So I guess I'm wondering, what does it mean to plan? Are we planning for, how to actually get these things accomplished? Or are we just planning for, are we just making an aspirational plan, as in we hope by the year 2030 to have X acres of solar panels? So I don't mean to put you on the spot with that, but I'm kind of wondering, what does it mean?
Before you answer that, Karen, I also want to say something along the same lines, is that we make all these great plans, but time and time again we run into the fact that we don't have any legal bite.
Sure.
We don't actually have any way of extracting any sort of compliance. And part of that's being a committee rather than a commission. But if we're going to put the work into this, I think I, as well as Glenn, would like to know, in RICAPS, is there anything that is actionable? Is there anything that is going to come out of this that says people must do this, or this will be incorporated into the Muni Code, or anything like that that's actually going to be mandatory,
Yes. Yes, certainly the Green Building Ordinance is included in the measures, and Muni Code is part of making enforcement happen. But what I've kind of heard, even with your conversations with Ken, is I don't know how much, and I'm not speaking about the law, but I'm not sure how much legal precedent there is to require someone to put in solar panels in an existing use. And so a lot of this, I think, is looking forward, and then maybe that the committee finds that disappointing, that maybe you're going to capture 10% in a couple of years, or some small number of the whole city. But I don't know if you can. I mean, you can encourage businesses. I'm sure that's something to explore. But in terms of requiring it, it's difficult. I mean, you've got to start somewhere, and down the road, you just get more and more. I mean, I can't promise you that you can make everyone put solar on the roof. No.
So, I mean, I think this is...
Didn't ask you to say that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
I think this is kind of like the issue that we're dealing with the trees in Crocker Industrial Park.
Except much more important.
Yeah.
Right. So, so what you do is you have an action plan, because the council liaison committee says this is a high priority for them. We put together an action plan, so therefore you've got at least 2 council members who are willing to push for this. Maybe as part of the action plan, because we cannot require buildings to retrofit to solar energy, you could require, maybe you look towards requiring new buildings, and when they tear down and put a new building up, that they do that. But at the same time, maybe you sit there and say that as a city, we want to set aside X amount of money every year as an incentive for buildings to do it, and then that becomes a budget question. And then if you've got 2 council members who are saying, yeah, this is very important, and you're saying this is how we're going to get it done. The same kinds of conversations we've been having about trees is that, maybe you change an ordinance to say that you don't have to replace a tree right away. You could replace a tree in 2 years. Maybe we look to say that, we work with a vendor to get a better price for a larger segment of solar panels put in. I mean, and I think that's, if you don't have the plan to say, here's what we're trying to achieve, those kinds of incentives are hard for the city council to pick up one off. But if you say this is part of the plan, and here's how we think we can get to that plan, and then we come back in 3 or 4 years, see what happens, and if the incentive isn't big enough, maybe the need is to create a bigger incentive for the private sector.
Right. I'm afraid we could...
I think that's how you try. I think it's both sides. Sorry, Glenn.
I was just going to say, I'm afraid we could all be underwater by the time this happens, but I take your point. Yeah.
So there's no law or no code, building code at this time that requires solar to be put on any type of building built.
I'm going to turn to the green building ordinance people because they know way more than I do, but my answer is no. Very short.
Right.
And we can't create a portion of that where if you build a new building, you have to incorporate alternative energy. And if you, and even if you remodeled a portion of your home, say 50 or 60% remodel, I mean, that's enough of a remodel that you should have to bring your whole building up to code anyway. So if you're not bringing your code, it should just be implemented into the code.
Right, so therefore you need to have the code passed, which is what the green building ordinance people are trying to do. I'm not quite sure what the green building ordinance says when it comes to solar, but as you said, there's a checklist. It's like when you're doing LEED, you have a checklist of things to say that this gets you LEED gold, this gets you LEED silver, this gets you LEED platinum.
Right.
And we've had a number of arguments about size limits and at what point green building ordinance requirements will kick in.
But that could be a recommendation from the Open Space and Ecology Committee that we think that solar panels is a high priority, and therefore we would recommend that we include this in a future code. Mm-hmm. Then you get the other side of the group that says, well, no, weatherization is more important.
Yeah.
Because so you get a lot of battles.
Yeah, I don't want to get too stuck on solar panels. I think that was just an example.
Right.
Energy conservation is just as important.
Absolutely. But I just going to express a little more frustration here. And that is that it seems like every time we try to move code forward, we're told we can't do that because it's not enforceable unless it's in line with what the state's doing. So it seems to me that it's just, I guess I just want to express, and maybe somebody else can tell me something different, that it's a very frustrating situation because we spend godly hours putting into these things, and then there's no actual way to make anything tangible.
There is. We just are too conservative as a city. I mean, Berkeley does it all the time. And ends up creating policies that the state later adopts.
We're also too small. Our size is a problem in that respect.
Small should make us more nimble.
Okay. So you can't tell, once we go through all this, I will not let you tell me that we can't do it because,
Sure, I won't tell you that.
okay, somebody else will have to do
Yeah,
it.
somebody else will tell you that.
Stuart, how close is the state to requiring solar?
I'd have
You
to.
heard anything?
I haven't heard anything.
So, state is requiring greenhouse gas reductions, but that can happen
So many
ways.
different ways.
in a variety of ways, and that's right. I don't think a solar.
And I think when they're
requirement is a good idea.
thinking solar, they're looking more at PG&E and Southern
right,
Edison.
renewable portfolio standards and stuff.
All right. I mean, they're looking at portfolio standards. I mean, that's the issue about the cap and trade. That
The state's not going to change code anytime.
Well,
They've actually upgraded the energy requirements for buildings.
right. But it's just, I mean, it's difficult because you've got so many different, even as we talk about, there's so many different competing forces, and then of course everything that we do in California is always labeled as anti-job.
Right.
And then I look at it and go, well, I don't want to be Shanghai, so I'm not quite sure what anti-job means. But you get into those kinds of issues. But if you don't have the plan to be, I agree, it's very frustrating. But if you don't have the plan to begin with, you at least don't you don't have anything to hold somebody's feet to the fire with.
Okay.
So as I said, my recommendation is have the subcommittee meet with Karen, go through the RICAP, see which ones make the most sense, which ones we want to add, and then be able to at the September meeting bring back to the committee or to the liaison committee, here's the issues that we would like to push forward as part of an energy plan for the city in the upcoming year.
Okay.
Fine by me.
One more question, Karen. So does it include both conservation and generation measures? Can you tell me offhand? That's interesting to me.
I don't know if I know the answer to that.
Okay.
Certainly takes the green building ordinance and talks about adding in different options to it. This was obviously developed before the new stuff came out, though. It encourages retrofits. It encourages... In conservation, you mean...
Energy conservation, retrofitting,
Energy
Yes.
saving measures.
energy saving measures,
Yes.
as well as generation measures.
Definitely, yes.
Okay. So, Natalie, will you put us together for a meeting date? I think I'd prefer to address that outside of committee. Okay?
Also, can we get a copy of the 34 possible measures?
Sure.
Okay.
Any more comments on number 6?
So the other aspect of number 6 is you asked us to talk about the review process for the final environmental impact report. You wanted that on the agenda. So the thought process for me was, I don't think there is once the FEIR comes out, there's no formal comment on the FEIR. Mm-hmm. It goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission goes through their process. People comment to the Planning Commission on their thoughts on the FEIR. And then it goes from whatever the Planning Commission does, it goes to the City Council. So I was thinking that maybe in September, because I don't think the final EIR is going to come out between now and then, is you have a conversation with the Liaison Committee to see what the Liaison Committee is thinking, what role, if any, the Open Space and Ecology Committee would have in dealing with the FEIR.
I have a question, though. Do we want to, as a group, review the responses to our comments and make sure that they were all responded to?
If it takes us another 6 months, I'll be missing a couple of the meetings.
No, I mean, I just didn't know if we
No.
wanted
I'm
to,
only kidding.
isolate our comments and go over them and make sure that they were addressed the way that we intended. Otherwise, we should address those comments directly to the City Council.
Right, and I think that's just the question that you want to ask. You can say that this is what we want to do. What does the liaison committee have any issues with that? Because I'm not quite sure what the process is once it gets released for it going to the Planning Commission. How much time you, as a committee, would have to look at everything? That would be my concern. And I think if you ask them what role they see you having.
I just didn't know if the committee was interested or not, or whether they never want to look at the damn thing again.
Oh, okay. I was looking at it from the other side. Of course, that you would want to look at it, but I'm not quite sure how that fits into the overall process.
Right.
I was doing it backwards. I couldn't imagine you not wanting to look at it.
Kidding.
It partly depends on how much time we have, because, we had to work on the DEIR, we had a long comment period, which then got extended a couple times. I can't imagine that we're going to have that much time.
No, right, and that's what my impression is that there is no comment period on an FEIR.
So it seems like
That's why
if there are
that's why-
issues, we have to immediately snap to the planning commission.
Or, right, it goes to the planning commission. I don't know the time period between, when it's going to get scheduled from the FEIR release to the planning commission. It's not going to be it'd be hard to believe it'd be the next week that the planning commission would be done with it, knowing how long it took for you guys to review.
Yeah, they haven't read it yet.
Right.
In
So they're going
theory.
to have to go through some process to go through the whole document again. It's not probably, probably not as much detail as you did, and not as much detail as the Citizens Committee did, but in some kind of fashion, they're going to have to go chapter by chapter. So so the question is with the liaison committee is how do you want to get Open Space and Ecology Committee's feedback on the FEIR? Do you want it to go directly to the council? Do you want to go through the planning commission? Do you want it? Because if it goes directly to the council, that gives you the entire planning commission period of time to review it.
So, yeah, I think that's a good question to find out what the council expects from us.
Right.
I think we all have our own personal expectations, and I would hope that we, as committee members, would follow through and puts a more appropriate, an appropriate amount of work into continuing this process. And that's going to mean different things to different people. But, yeah, let's go ahead and make that a question for council. Is that adequate for everyone? Okay. Community festival.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Karen.
Karen, sorry. Why am I thinking Jane?
We don't even have a committee on staff names.
That's okay. You're not going to be on her subcommittee.
I had a question about the work plan itself,
Ah,
because that's something we'll have to present to council in September. Will we review that and sweep it up before we
August.
present that
Let's do it in August.
in August?
sure.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any?
It's in your packets. You can look at it.
Yeah, saw that. So we should hold on to it for next month?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
God, has it really been over 2 years since we updated it?
Yeah, I mean, the DER was almost a year, and we didn't do anything else during that year.
Okay.
It was a lot.
I was just going to, may I suggest something here? Natalie tracked down the biological inventory on the Levinson property and a very interesting report on the garter snake. I've read the garter snake one. I haven't read the other one. And Mary Gutekunst, who suggested that we find this stuff, has not read them. I forwarded them to her as soon as I got them from you, but apparently she overlooked them. So I reminded her about them today, and I would like to propose that we take up that discussion next month too, if that's okay. Just move the biological item 10 to August. Is that all right?
Do you think that she would be willing to attend as a guest and give us her opinions on what is in this?
I don't know. I can ask her.
Would you ask her?
Yeah.
It'd be very.
Well,
I tried to read this online, but my pet peeve is people who send PDFs sideways. So please don't ever do that again.
Thanks for
Printed
tracking
out.
that stuff down. I hope it
Thank you
didn't
for tracking
take
it
too long.
down, but in the future, could you make it?
If we need to bring food to entice Mary, we can bring some kind of food for her.
Yeah.
Might do more than that. It might need more than that, but I'll ask her.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we understand.
Who's going to know over a camera?
I would.
Coffee cups.
Yeah.
No, I'll pester her about reading this stuff and try to get her to come to a meeting. And if she doesn't come to a meeting, I'm sure she will let me know what she thinks.
My only concern is how many things have we now kicked to August, Natalie?
Just two.
No, we had one thing before.
We have 7 items now.
For August?
So I myself put there calendaring of events, because I think that's been kicked from last month, but that could be moved again. I just put a draft in this packet. And then we have the biological report, lot coverage, work plan, the skunks, and then what you wanted to discuss about land use for the energy. Why wouldn't we be covering that? Oh, so that's just 6, actually. I wrote one thing twice.
So that's
The land
only
use thing
6.
was
And you're
really
going to have and you're going to have the community festival.
Yep,
Yeah.
and we're going to have the community
I
festival.
mean that you're going to. I mean that's coming up October 4th. So you're going to probably want to talk about that next time to make sure that everything is moving forward. So that's 7. So she had the right number, just not all. 7 is doable. Starting getting more than that is starting to get hard.
Yeah. It's just my concern that more things are going to creep up. Would it be possible, Glenn, to start the conversation on the biological inventory of Levinson, or do you feel that that's
Tonight?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to leave at 8:30, and we still, as I said, I've read the garter snake report. I haven't read the other report. The whole point of this is I think, to find out, how important is it to try to save Levinson. I mean, basically, that's what this is
I think
about.
it's very important. And
This
report was not readable online, and it's really kind of hard to read the way it's printed as well.
So we need to read it.
We need to read it.
To try to, first of all, to see if those reports are adequate to make a determination on its importance.
Yeah.
And if they're not, we may need to try to figure out how to get some additional research done.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, then we need to try to figure out what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a good August one because that gets you right into the work plan for the liaison committee in September.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just sad that we can't move things. We can move things back, but we can't move things forward because if it's not on the list, we can't discuss it so much. So that's just, and I just know that we've got 7 and that more things are going to creep up before we get there.
Yeah, we're up to 8 now. The energy plan will be back next time too.
Yeah.
So we're up to 8 already.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, if that is the committee's wish, then we will.
The other
go ahead
question
and
is,
do
do you
that.
want to have a special meeting
To talk about Levinson?
to knock 2 or 3 of these things off? Do you want to do the third Wednesday of the month is taken up by Parks and Recreation, but if you want to do 2 in August to prepare yourselves for the September meeting with the liaison committee, that would be fine with Natalie.
It's okay with me.
It's fine with me. If,
So I mean, that way we at least get through everything.
Yeah.
I hear your
Missing
frustration,
July.
Barbara.
it's a
I mean,
concern.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want it to become.
Right. You don't want us to
Problem.
keep pushing everything back. But if we do, maybe the 2nd and 4th in August,
What's the 4th Wednesday in August?
right after the 3rd. She's looking at her calendar.
I'm okay with that since we missed the June meeting.
Oh, you guys didn't meet last month?
Oh, Michael Abney and I did.
It was a very short meeting.
Wow.
Ollie was there.
Wow. Throw your fellow members under the bus.
I will confess, I worked right through the meeting. I never even
27th.
picked my head up or took
And
out my
Kima
calendar or anything.
was getting married, so he had a pretty damn good excuse.
Yeah.
So you have the 27th. It would be August 27th.
I think that works for me.
That works for me.
I might be on vacation, but I'll try not to be.
On which date?
August 27th? So you'd have a meeting on August 13th and another one on August 27th. And that way you can do 5 and 5 items kind of thing.
I think it'd be good. And then we'll be more caught up.
I won't be here for August 13th.
Oh. So we'll skip all the items that you want to talk about until August 27th.
There's a
Is that, you want to talk about everything, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Gabby.
there's a good chance I'll be on a work trip that week. On
August
the
13th?
Yeah, I'll know tomorrow.
Wait, on August 13th?
That whole week, I think I'm going to be in Cologne, Germany.
So what's the first week in August? What's the first Wednesday in August?
August 6th. you want to do August 6th and August 27th?
That's
I
good with
would
me.
love to do that. Spreading them out seems nice.
Yeah. What do you think, Glenn?
Does that work for everyone else?
Michael?
I guess.
Mike works
Okay.
in town. He's going, oh.
I got to work.
Yeah.
I work every one.
Okay, so August 6th and August 27th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody want to, do we need to second that or forward it or? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Community festival.
We should have one October 4th. So, what I mean, we could do the same things we've done in the past. We've usually had a subcommittee of Kima and
Sean Sweeney.
Sean
Yes.
put it together. I don't think Sean wants to do it again this year. Maybe he does.
I think he's off the subcommittee.
Well, he can't be because he's got to bring the soil
Yes.
amendments. So you need to talk to Sean about bringing soil amendments. But normally the subcommittee would talk about what they want to do. They bring it back to the full committee, and
Stuart, you forgot to mention our bag lady.
well, she's here, but she wasn't on the subcommittee,
And the invasive species display.
and that was Glenn.
Can't forget that. Big hit.
Yeah, but so anyway, so I think you guys should create a subcommittee, talk about what you want to have there, or if you just want to say that you want to do the same things you've always done, that makes our life easier, and then we can just contact Sean and maybe get another article in the Star about the bags again, like we did last time, and maybe get an article about some of the other things that we would do at it, and then you don't have to talk about this ever again, and just maybe in August have a sign-up sheet for when people are going to be available and whether or not they can bring in the items that they said they could.
So the hard part for me is I do the Mountain Watch
I know,
booth.
but we put you guys right next to each other,
That
so that
was
way
good.
you could
good.
cover.
Yep, and I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was actually, the only thing I want to say about the community festival is I think we should mix it up a little.
Oh,
I think people come by the booth and they see the same things and they sort of,
so you probably should have a subcommittee talk about what you want to do this year. Then
yeah, unfortunately, sorry.
I was.
Does anybody have any new
We
ideas?
have a subcommittee? We don't.
We don't.
We've got-
Shall we make a subcommittee?
It's Kima and
Well, wait a second. Maybe we should just talk for a minute and
Okay.
say, what do we have any new ideas?
I would propose that we do the ones we've already done.
What about water conservation?
Oh, that's a great one.
That's a great one.
Water conservation, yes. We can definitely, we've had water conservation flyers in the past, but I think we definitely need to up our water conservation game. Anything with the polystyrene ban come to mind?
No.
No? Okay.
Do you want to do a display? Do you want to do something about the gyre and the bottle caps and micro garbage?
Oh, me?
Well, I mean, do you think that's a good idea? I think micro garbage is a great idea.
Yeah.
I like the idea of water conservation, but I'm kind of blanking on the idea of a display. And I think we do need to do something different, something eye-catching, something interesting. But I don't want to be on that subcommittee.
so water
Why not?
conservation, invasive species. I think the soils that Sean does, people actually do talk to him for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
mean,
got
he-
substantially less interest this past
Oh, did
year
it?
than the preceding year.
Okay, so then maybe never mind. But would there be something about carbon? I know we probably don't have the carbon calculator, but would there be something on the greenhouse gases that we can do?
I've been thinking for a while that it would be really fun if we could make a huge piñata in a shape of a black paper mache foot, the carbon footprint, and then have the kids break it. And maybe have some, I don't know, stuff fall out with messages about saving.
And candy, because otherwise kids will
And
break it.
candy's mandatory. But, and I've actually given some thought to how one would build a huge paper mache foot. But actually doing it, I think, is probably not my sort of thing. But yeah, I enjoy thinking about this stuff. But
So, okay, water conservation, invasive species, greenhouse gases,
paper mache foot
and
piñata.
micro garbage. So those 4 items. I think if you have 4 items, I think that's going to be
Wait, micro garbage, water conservation.
invasive species, because I think that's always important. I mean, even if people don't pay attention, they still see it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's a big issue for us.
Would anybody like to experiment with building a paper mache piñata in the shape of a foot and painting it black? I mean, I think that would be fun.
I will try and do that to go along with the carbon footprint calculator, but I'm not making any promises
Well,
until
the
I've got
other
the carbon footprint
The
calculator.
other thing
built.
is we can look online and see if we can find
Yeah,
paper mache feet,
yeah.
pinata feet.
Almost.
Okay.
And the internet can give you almost anything you want and a lot of stuff you don't. So
Right.
who knows?
So
It
somebody
could
may have done. There may be a company that does body parts of pinatas.
Everything's on eBay.
Yeah.
So we'll look online. It can't be. It's going to be within our budget.
Okay. I will be on the subcommittee. And so what are our issues now? Water conservation,
Invasive species.
invasive species, carbon calculator.
Greenhouse gases, carbon calculator would be under that, and then micro garbage. I thought that sounds like a good one because I think that's an issue.
One thing I will volunteer to do is get the invasive species samples. Do we still have the poster board?
Oh yeah, that's why we were recommending doing the same thing we did last year.
So that I think we can do.
You just show up with
So it's going to be Glenn and
samples of
Kima on the
actual-
subcommittee,
the actual plants.
is what I heard.
Pardon
No,
me?
Glenn does not want to be on the subcommittee.
Oh,
for that.
Barbara and Kima on the subcommittee is what I heard.
The other
But-
Glenn.
Yeah.
Subcommittee or no subcommittee, I'll still do I'll collect the plant samples. Yeah, we bring actual.
I'm sorry, Barbara. I was trying to get it onto her. Okay.
You know, I could probably just kick myself now.
Don't do it.
I could probably do the paper mache foot.
Let's see what
Really?
Let's see what they have online.
Yeah, I'm like thinking we have, there's this big inflatable sandal at work, a flip flop.
Yeah, okay.
Flip flop.
That would work.
Thinking, well, you just need something like that to build the paper mache.
To model it
around.
around, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you let the air out and
Okay, so I'll tell you what. We'll look online, see what it
Okay.
costs,
okay.
and if it's like overly expensive, we'll come
Or
to
if you can find one. I'm not sure that you
Yeah.
can, but
The internet has everything, right, Stuart?
Now you've got me
Almost.
curious.
Yeah.
although it would be very noteworthy if we asked the internet something it could not answer and could not provide.
Yeah, but then somebody else needs to get the pinata pole for us to hang the damn pinata on.
Now we're gonna put it on a tree.
No, we're not. I cannot believe the PB&R refused to amend the rental agreement to include not nailing, hammering, or otherwise abusing the trees.
You know what? I'll bet
the
you
hell?
I'll bet you with World Cup, there's got to be pinatas in shapes of feet nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're probably right.
Big ones though.
But what about that, Stuart?
I can't help you if they're not going to make a decision that you like.
Well, let's.
Well, what was their
not on-
reasoning for not
Because they like the idea that people get to use trees.
with nails?
Yeah, let's nail our pinata on the tree.
I think most
Tell
people
them that we
tie them
support
up,
their
but
decision.
maybe we're wrong. Anyway, moving right along.
So Michelle, if we end up making the thing, I'll help you.
You'll have to figure out what goes in it.
I'll help too, if I'm done with the carbon
It
calculator.
would just be fun. I even know where I can get newspaper.
I don't need newspaper. So before this train falls off the tracks, invasive species plant brochure.
My goodness, it would be awesome if we had them finished in time for.
It would.
Community festival.
I mean, poor
12 minutes, people.
Elena has been waiting and waiting on us, and I don't know what the holdup is now. Is it Mountain Watch or what?
Well, we actually asked Joe to do a big rewrite.
Joe, where are you?
Well, that's true. Natalie's.
That was in May.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's it's summertime right now. Send him a note.
Well, he did a lot of this.
CC you on the email if he doesn't reply to me.
Okay.
You can bully him. So we have this. Is this revised from last time, or is this the same one we got last time?
Elena revised this for last month's meeting, I believe. So she listened in on the meeting when Joe was here, and so I think she went ahead and changed things.
Yeah,
It's got
Yeah.
pictures that I have last time.
this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, it does look different.
Yeah,
Who did it? Was it Mary or Elena?
Elena.
Elena.
Okay.
Yeah.
Print it.
I think it is better. The only thing I'm worried about is the photographs. Although I assume that they'll be better quality than this, but the licorice plant one in particular, I think it would be really hard to use.
It looks like it just didn't print very well, to be honest.
Too bad there's not a little illustration. But, you know, it's out there in the web.
I recognized the licorice plant from the picture when I was driving in South City the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, testimony.
So,
Is that fennel? Is that what we're talking about?
No.
I didn't think so.
so I would like to make a suggestion. Under need more information, could we just put the long list of invasive species without pictures? Because I think even without pictures, if you could take this to the gardening store and say, oh, I shouldn't buy a
Scotch broom.
yeah, something that's not on the picture part, but you know,
Both of these?
No,
or one of them, just one of them, the long list, all the invasive species, the long list.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I also think it would be a good idea if the Latin names were italicized.
yeah, they should.
And I think the format is pretty good the way it is, but it'll be a lot easier to read if it's italicized, if the Latin names are italicized.
They are.
Not on this list.
They are in some places and other places.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of a long list here. But I think we can make it even a longer list. With a common and scientific name.
Maybe Kevin Fryer has some gorgeous picture we could put on the front.
Yeah.
He's been taking some pretty amazing shots.
What I was thinking of, one thing that struck me was the difference between invasive versus natural, or the other
Non-native, yeah.
non-native. So many people get the two confused and just don't care anymore. And,
Yeah.
and something like that might be kind of, I don't know, clarifying.
Non-native
It is
versus
said here,
It does mention,
right at the beginning.
yeah, it does mention it. It doesn't say it as explicitly.
I was talking about like on the front.
What else?
When you say right on the front, you mean here?
Protecting San Bruno Mountain, a guide to invasive plants, versus non-native plants. It's not the same thing. I don't know.
No, they're not. But
They're not, but this is really just about the invasive species.
Yeah, the third paragraph says, of thousands of introduced non-native plants, only some are highly invasive.
so you don't think that's enough about that, or
Yeah, it's fine. It's just I was thinking about someplace in here where you look at it, and it would jump out because for me, for many many years, all the talk about invasive versus non-native, it was all a big blur to me.
So maybe a little glossary you'd
I
like.
never really thought.
Yeah.
But it also says on the next place, it says, even if you don't plant natives, look for drought-tolerant plants that are not invasive. So I think it's clarified a couple of different times. I'm not sure how much more clarification we can get in a
Yeah, it's just a little brochure.
You know,
little brochure.
I think Michael's onto something. I just think we have a little space here,
Yep.
right here. We could do just a little above the invasive list right here. This part.
I'm hoping that'll get bigger.
Oh, okay.
But have a little glossary,
Okay.
so people understand certain basic terms like native plant, how it's defined, non-native, invasive, seed bank, drought tolerant. Just a few of those, endangered species, rare species. What's the definition of those things? We talk about them all the time, but a lot of people don't understand, a garden plant, weed, I mean, I think it might be interesting for people. I'll try to, you have that look, Glenn.
I'm just thinking where it would go. I mean, if we if we've got 2 pages where it says need more information, one is completely blank, one is about half blank. If we're going to put a long list of invasive species on there, it might take up both pages. So I'm just wondering where we would have room for a glossary.
Yeah, I think you've got good points, but I'd rather see another invasive species on here. Like a 7th or 8th.
Well, there might be room for more on the
Yeah.
6-panel section as well.
Does anybody know how long it takes to get this thing printed and ready to go for the community festival, which is in October 4th?
I don't know.
Yeah, what does Elena need for lead
I know
time?
printing takes some time.
I'm sure it does.
I can't hear
yeah.
you. Sorry, Natalie.
I'll ask Elena because she's the one that will be printing the final
Yeah.
pamphlets.
The other thing too is this is a standard 11 by 17, right? So worst comes to worst, a high quality double-sided color printer, and we could make enough for the day of
Yeah.
to at least
I mean, our printer is probably fine enough to make something for the day.
Okay.
yeah.
It won't be glossy or anything, but I mean, all of our newsletters go out off of our printer.
Yeah.
It just seems like a really good time to get this information out.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
Everybody
agreed.
Yeah.
found that.
I
And
think
they don't
this
make
is greatly
piñatas.
improved.
Huh?
They don't make foot pinatas.
Oh, no.
It is not common. Killing me.
I do think this is greatly improved over the previous version. I think
I do
it's
too.
Me too.
really much more informative than it was before.
Yeah. The inside needs to be flipped the other direction. I don't know if that's just how you printed it.
How do you?
Glenn's got 10 minutes before she has to be home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I see.
Moving on.
Okay.
I'm here to help you, Glenn.
next.
Thanks, Stuart. So are we done? Have we done what we're going to do with this brochure?
Or
Yeah.
was Joe going to look at it again? I mean, that was the question, wasn't it?
Because we're not doing 10, and I think Glenn can leave before the approval of the minutes. So
Me too.
let's just spend our last 10 minutes on the brochure. Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I think that what would be nice. I like what's here now. I think it's really good. We need a good, strong image for the front. And maybe Kevin Fire might have something that's suitable, something that kind of shows the interface between the mountain and people, the houses.
Oh, what did I see it? There's a tree I saw today in town, and the ivy is all the way to the top. It's a pine tree.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's a couple of them like that.
Yeah, and that would be a great picture. Down in the bottom caption for the address, or maybe not the address. That might be offensive to the homeowner, but
See that? You want a positive picture on the front so people want to pick it up. That would be kind of like,
well, they're just seeing a picture of a tree with ivy on it.
yeah.
This is what happens when, and really people are motivated by two things, pain and pleasure, so you pick one or the other.
That's true. Okay, so let's have some photo submissions of what we think would be a good cover. Because, you might be right. It just depends how it comes out in a picture, in an image.
Are there any
Picture looks nice.
are there any pictures of grassland in bloom in the spring that are up close enough that you can see the variety of flowers?
I have a couple.
I think that would be good. One thing that we could think about for the cover is, I don't know if we've got the pictures to do this, but if we had a picture like that, showing the variety of plants on the mountain versus a part of the mountain that's covered by broom, for instance.
You know what I love is
We could say this or this.
that there's a copy of it that hangs in the post office, and it's like it's like
The
titled The
stars.
Stars of San Bruno Mountain. And it's got all the different flowers. I love that picture.
Yeah, they've got I think there are nine flowers on that poster. I was just there today and noticing it too, and thinking what a nice picture it was.
Natalie, if you remind me, I will go to the post office, look whose work that is, and try and email them and see if they'd be willing to let us use it for the invasive species brochure.
But that's the pictures of good flowers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's a good thing to do on the cover because that
Okay.
gives a confusing
Confusing,
message.
okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
agree.
I think we need
Still
to
have
either.
one more page.
What if you said something like, what if you called it the cover page something like protecting San Bruno Mountain's treasures?
That's where I think that if you have a picture of the mountain, like you said, like grassland with the flowers or some kind of,
Yeah.
good-looking picture of the interface zone, would demonstrate that better. And then on the inside
Better than what? The post office pictures?
of good plants,
Yeah, the tree.
because this one is about invasive. So we want to show a picture of what we're protecting on the front.
Yeah.
Protecting San Bruno Mountain. Then,
Okay. I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to explain why.
okay.
To me, I feel like a lot of people looking up at the mountain, as long as it's green, it's the same to them.
True.
You know, like they don't, if it's green gorse or if it's green grassland, it's green, and that's what they see.
And if you have broom, it's even better because then it's got a color.
Yeah, it's green all year round.
Or white or
Yellow
yellow or
flowers.
whatever.
Oh, and those
Right.
nice, pretty yellow flowers. So to me, a picture of like flowers, like close-ups of flowers and making these plants personal, and this is what we're saving, is
Right.
hot for me.
That's why I was thinking a picture of, like what Glenn said,
Okay.
of the grassland with some of the rare flowers that we have.
It'd have to be close up, though.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know what you mean.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm like flipping through pictures in my head right now of all the photos I have.
Yeah.
We've also got to think
I'll
about
take a
how much
picture of the tree and email it to you.
That would be really
how much room we have
Center
here.
of Brisbane. It's right in the middle.
Yeah, and it's covered in nasty ivy. And then on this panel here where it says need more information, and when we're going to extend the list of invasives beyond what's in here, that might be where we have a series of little thumbnails back and forth of the invasives so that you can see it.
But can we put something in the need this blank page here
That's what I mean.
with the options, the other options,
What do you mean other options?
Alternatives.
the pictures that she sees in the mail post office. I don't know the names of them, but
The
Oh, but you
alternative
can't
planting.
plant those. Most
Yeah, most of them you can't. Oh, that reminds me. So one other thing here, you have in your packet, I said I was going to do a little blurb for the Star on invasive species. So we can't spend all of our time on, we got 4 minutes.
Why am I not finding that in my packet?
You know, mine looks like this. I just randomly picked the oxeye daisy as my first one, probably because it was top of the list.
So getting back to the brochure, Michelle, you wanted a glossary, native, invasive.
I thought Michael's idea to have some definition around that was good.
So that's what you wanted to put on this page?
No, just the other half of this little page.
But
It's
if you
like-
extend the invasive species list, there won't be room.
Well, we're going to extend the invasive species list on this whole panel.
Oh, I see. So I'm confused. So it's already half a page. If we extend it to say a whole page, we've got another whole page.
Right.
So will the glossary be a whole page?
No,
Okay.
it's like five words.
What will be the other half of the gloss? Well, if it's 5 words, can we squeeze it in on one of these 3?
No.
We're going to explain what they mean.
Okay.
I don't think so, because this is the introduction, what you can do, resources, and then this is like, native plant, non-native, invasive, I just thought it would be a good idea. I agree.
You know, one of the other ways we could do that is to use footnotes.
I don't think people really read footnotes.
Oh, I do. But I'm an academic.
I do.
Exactly, and
I
so
do
I'm an
too.
academic.
Yeah,
But I think we're weird.
Yeah, I don't think normal people read them.
What are footnotes?
They're big, black, and covered in paper mache.
I know what those are.
So, I mean, this part that says, open up this brochure, could we just eliminate that and put a short glossary there?
I think if you're going to define those words, you're going to need more room than that.
Okay. I mean, if we were only talking about 4 or 5 words, maybe.
I like
still,
the
a
little wiggling
definition
of
is gonna
font.
Be a sentence or two.
Yeah. Okay. Or maybe if we drop this picture that we don't have.
No, I think you need a picture there.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out how to keep put the glossary somewhere else so that it's not plunked down in in the middle of a large space. We could potentially use more.
But the glossary, the whole idea of the glossary is to make them understand why they should even read this. That's why I thought it was a good idea
Terms.
to have it on this panel. Where
I just like how your little thing you put on
Yeah.
this thing is first thing it starts with is invasive versus non-native species.
Yeah, I figured that was good basic
Yeah.
education for people.
I mean that could be enough right there. Just that little amount of writing.
you could put that
Pull
instead.
out as a if you pop it out with a border or you pop it out with some space. I mean that's usually enough.
Sure.
Then you wouldn't necessarily need the little glossary then.
Yeah.
It's just that pictures are what make people actually look at it.
That's true.
And pictures, you can list these species till hell freezes over, and people are going to look at them and read it, and they're like, okay. And they're not going to have this brochure with them when they go shopping.
I will.
You
And I
will,
want
but-
them to.
I know you do.
Everyone
honey,
should put one in their car.
but they probably
And the state
won't.
should require solar panels on people's.
Right.
Should.
Yes.
But if they see a little picture and they understand the story, they're going to remember it better.
True.
I think just a little blurb like Barbara did for the article would be fine.
Okay.
Might be better than a glossary because you
I
start
agree.
a glossary.
Okay.
It's hard to figure out which terms to include and which not. I mean,
Yeah. Well, what she wrote here is really, it's good.
Could just actually go right above pop out right above the little place where it talks about non-native versus invasive.
one question is Elena doing the blurbs on the other plants, or does she need help?
I think
Need help
she
with
needs
those,
help.
or-
I think that's why she's probably said need more information.
Well, I did some of the work on the oxeye daisy for her, coincidentally.
Okay.
So I know this is we're beyond our time, but do we ever do anything that says what we recommend people plant?
Yeah, on mine I tried to do an alternative, and it seems to me actually, I think I even
The old
have
brochure had some alternative.
That might actually. I'm just thinking that,
I think that should go in the section for each plant, so it will just snug in there.
But the problem is, if you don't have a picture of it, no one's going to know what it looks.
Plus, there are so many options. I just direct people to come to the nursery.
Okay.
This is going to be a lot smaller than the old brochure one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be considerably smaller.
Yes.
Well, I like the
So-
pocket size. I do.
I don't know how much.
So do we have anything on here that talks about the nursery?
No.
Yeah.
Well, we have the.
Oh,
Yeah.
under resources.
Yeah, it talks about the nursery.
Wait, where? Oh,
No.
San Bruno Mountain Watches.
Something under resources.
Well, it talks about the San Bruno Mountain Watch.
Doesn't talk about the nursery.
Oh,
Well, it
doesn't.
says that they
oh,
grow,
we should
sell
fix that.
native plants.
And maybe you might want to do so where you have this
Oh.
panel here. Maybe you want to do some pictures from the nursery and
Yeah.
highlight the nursery more.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea because if we're
I
not
can
going to
go home.
talk about specific plants,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So.
Good idea. I get Clay tells me I can go home if I have one.
Okay. We need to say Mission Blue Nursery somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe a picture of the nursery is a good thing to have on this, what you can do.
Well, why don't we put it on the nursery page? Because that, pictures anchor things and draw people's eyes. So why don't we have like a picture here, Mission Blue Nursery.
Oh, you want a whole panel devoted to it?
What else are we going to put on there?
I thought you wanted more invasives.
Well, I was thinking if we do all this invasives, that's probably enough. Oh my goodness.
Time flies.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
Sorry, I can't
Good luck
stay,
with your modem.
That's all right.
but gotta get my internet working.
Okay.
So does anybody have any additional comments on my blurb? I've put it to San Bruno Mountain Watch for comments as well. I just want to, if we can resolve, if everybody can say yay, nay, or do this, then I can give it to Natalie and it can actually go in. What's the deadline for the next star, do you know?
18th, I think.
Okay, yeah, let's resolve this today so it can actually go in.
Looks good to me.
Okay, great. I'll just see if anybody from San Bruno Mountain Watch,
Wherever, not where.
where? I always
Wherever. Wherever.
Okay.
It becomes established.
Yeah, she emailed.
Yeah, I'm a slightly dyslexic, so spelling and punctuation are challenging.
Yeah, we catch those.
Thank you.
We have a professional proofreader.
Oh, great. Otherwise, I'm...
No, we really do. We have somebody in town who's a professional proofreader who goes through the entire star before we send it out.
I appreciate that because it's
You're
hard.
laughing at me.
It's hard.
I've just found typos in it before.
Me too. But
We have a professional proofreader who does it before we send it out.
And our website?
No, that we don't.
Ah! Okay, that looks good. Okay.
So Natalie, just poke me to see if I've heard back from San Bruno Mountain Watch, like a week before the 18th, which would be about now.
If you probably are. It's pretty overwhelming right now. We have
Okay.
a lot of stuff on our plate.
Okay. Well, give me a couple days to see if I hear back from them, and if not, we'll just send it in as is. Okay?
Okay.
So, did we decide that we're going to make this all an extended list of invasive
I think we should make
species?
suggestions and let Elena
Okay.
design it,
Okay.
since she is the designer
Great.
and knows what she's doing. So maybe we could communicate the different ideas that we've had and some suggestions, and maybe get her some photographs of different, a selection of photographs to choose from.
Okay.
And I will look through my archives and see if I don't have an appropriate close-up wildflower that shows the mountain in the background, because believe me, I do. I have probably, 8,000 photos. So somewhere in there, good luck finding it. And then, provide her with some of the other images and suggestions.
Okay. Natalie, could you forward my thing on oxide daisy to her? That might be useful for her. And also poke me. I will take on either the licorice plant or the pampas grass if somebody will do the other one. Bribes. Type up the...
Natalie
Little-
will do the other.
Natalie will do the other? Okay. High five, Natalie. Which one do you want? Do you care?
Pampas grass.
Okay, I'll take licorice plant.
Okay. A little history of how it came to California would be nice, Natalie,
Oh.
and how it got so widespread.
Do you know the answer?
It was-
California Highway Department
Yeah, California Highway Department.
thought it would be a good erosion control plant.
Yep.
You want to throw them under the bus, okay.
Hell yes. It was one of those environmental disasters
Don't spend too much
caused with the best of intentions.
time on it, though, because there's other information that needs to go in.
Okay, so are we done?
Minutes.
Oh, wait, let me just say one more thing before we do the minutes. In your packet, there was the Baylands Community Advisory Group notes from the May 20th meeting. I don't know if you got it over the wire, but you definitely got it in here tonight. And
Why am I not seeing that?
it was at the bottom of the pile.
Thing at the bottom of my pile is the 11th.
And so you all might want to read that and stay updated. This came from Mary Goodenconst. This is about Dr. Horn's presentation on constructed wetlands. And then there is the film that was filmed. And is that available on the website yet, Natalie? Do you know?
It has been, yeah.
Okay. So you can just go and find it on our website, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So that's definitely worth a read and a watch.
Okay.
It has bold letters at the top. Did you find it, Barbara?
No, I swear I don't have it.
Oh, weird.
But I went to that meeting, so I'm not going to be upset. I know.
Okay.
I already sent Natalie one correction on the draft of the minutes. Any other corrections before we put it forward to approval?
And also there's May.
There's both April and May, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, everybody take a minute to read this over before we approve it.
I did read it today.
I read the May, but I didn't read April. I don't know why.
One thing, Natalie, in the minutes, when you actually publish them, like if you look at the April minutes and you go to like number 6, Brisbane Acres lot coverage, that is basically not readable because it's just one whole huge block of type. So it would be really good to kind of break it up into paragraphs so that it is easier to read and digest and understand. It's pretty much the same with the rest of the minutes. So if you could do that before you actually publish them, that would be a good thing. Because the whole point is for people to be able to read them and know what went on.
Oh, I think I did read this one too. Okay.
Pardon?
I think I did actually read this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did. So has everybody had time to read?
Mm-hmm.
Mike? Okay. So concerning the Wednesday, April 9th draft minutes, do I have a motion for approval?
Mm-hmm.
Any second?
Second.
Great. And concerning the Wednesday, May 14th draft minutes, do I have a motion for approval? Second? Okay, great.
Do you want to vote? All in favor? Aye.
All in favor, aye. Done.
Okay.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
And our next meetings are August 6th and August 27th.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and Natalie, one more thing. I'm sorry to be pesky. The Levinson report, could you break this up into regular pages and send it again? Like, in this way? So that, because I'd like to share this with other folks, and it's not really legible right now. Thank you.
I have one more question, Natalie. The liquid fuel storage, did that ever go to council? Because I was supposed to go.
Yes, it did, I think.
Did it?
Yeah. I don't remember.
It was on an agenda.
I thought it was.
Because somebody was supposed to poke me because I was supposed to go and actually represent that piece of.
I'm pretty sure I was there, and I think it just went through consent calendar.
Okay.
And
So-
nobody discussed it.
I missed it.
What didn't it, Seward? Wasn't that like,
I'll check again.
We're talking about the stuff in Crocker, right?
yeah.
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 You know, I haven't been to all my meetings. I don't remember.
Okay. Natalie, can you find out if I missed that? Or
Because-
if
because
it's
wasn't it
still
an ordinance?
forthcoming?
So it would have been 2 meetings. If it was an ordinance, it would have been 2 meetings.
I'll check what meeting that was.
Normally, we can't introduce on a consent calendar.
Just run into one blur.
One more thing, Natalie.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to find the Mitch Bull notes concerning the Energy Strategy Subcommittee. Is that still on your list?
I think I sent those out a while ago. There's not a lot of information on it. I'll send
Okay.
it out again.
Yeah, or tell me when you sent it out because I totally dug through my OSEC email folder today and did not come across it. So,
Yeah. Okay.
all right. Was that it? Oh, and the street tree species list was going to be, Joe Cannon had requested that be reviewed or suggested that be reviewed by Friends of the Urban Forest. Did that go off to them?
No.
No? Okay. There's another action item for you.
I think maybe we kind of. I thought that wasn't an action item because someone was saying, "Oh, that's planning," or "That's something we do here." So I guess, and then we started talking about maybe bringing someone from planning here to talk about it, and then Public Works.
Yeah, not planning. Planning
So-
doesn't care about trees.
About Public Works
Okay.
and that. So I think I got confused in that. So I mean, I can still send the list to Friends of the Urban Forest,
Okay.
and then I guess we'll have to meet with Public Works.
Maybe we'll add that to August then. One of the August meetings. Figure out where we are or if we're moving forward on that. I just don't, we've got so many balls up in the air right now. I'm just trying to,
Sean reminded me that we had, Sean Sweeney reminded me that we had gone through the tree list and made recommendations, but we don't know what happened with that. Because he worked a lot on that, and he is extremely knowledgeable about that. So we should go back and find that work that he did.
yeah, it's a shame when we have to like go scramble to redo the work we did and pull everything
Well,
back together.
He
but-
did it right as we were embarking on the draft.
Yeah,
PIR, so
yeah.
it got buried under that,
Okay.
unfortunately. But he did do some good work for us on that. So maybe it was before Natalie was here.
Right. Lisa may have been here if it was right before the EIR. Because that would have been May, and Lisa would have been
Yeah,
here.
Lisa was.
So maybe
here.
we can find that work. I think that's.
I'm
where
wondering if he handed it in or if he said he was going to do more work on it.
I don't know, but
I don't
that's-
remember. We'll go back
I
and
think
look.
that's why we didn't go to Friends of the Urban Forest because we'd already done the
Right, but I don't know if Sean handed what he did to us.
Okay.
Because I think I'm vaguely remembering. We can go back and look at the meetings.
Yeah,
good.
or,
See what happened.
or reach out to Sean or.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
where we left it last time, and I think
That
that's
makes
why.
I got I got the same recollection you do,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not quite sure the handoff
Yeah,
was made.
no. So the handoff is find the work we did. It would have been like May of 2012,
Yeah.
and
No, yeah, and we'll
see whether
we'll-
we got the information
and if
from
not,
Sean.
yeah, and I think he was reading stuff too, so we can go back and look at the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
And Michelle, you had some sticky plants that drop stuff on, or trees. that
Yeah,
drop sticky
it's Australian native, and it's one of them is I think it's a Eucalyptus ficifolia, and the other one is some other kind of hybrid gum tree. They're both nasty.
Okay, we should make sure those don't end up on the list.
Yeah.
I move we adjourn. Do we have a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ha ha.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you ride home?
Oh, I guess I'm going up the hill.
Yeah, I'm going up the hill. So
Kinda-
Stuart, how are things down in Half Moon Bay? What's going on? Any changes? Any different? All the
No,
same?
they're doing they're meeting with the recruiter on July 15th meeting,
Uh-huh.
so next Tuesday.